friends, it's Beverly here over at Crafting Chaos, and I'm finally bringing to you the box that I showed on Facebook a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, due to things that I couldn't have anything that I could do anything about, I have been a bit delayed. I'd hoped to have brought it to you before now, but we've had a baby that was born very poorly and was in the NICU unit, the neonatal intensive care. Thankfully, he's now thriving and doing well, but they did suspected they had sepsis at first and then possibly neonatal meningitis, so it was all very, very scary for us as a family. Then my grandson was born the day after, and my daughter-in-law was very poorly, and she's for some reason she's got now an enlarged heart, and although she's been allowed home, she will need subsequent treatment to treat this at a specialist hospital in Newcastle where she lives, and it's causing sort of like a moderate form of heart failure, but we believe it is treatable, so we're waiting to see what the outcome of that is. So at the moment we're all self-isolating because both me and my husband have had like a flu type cold, which we weren't sure what it was, but we're now on the road to recovery from that. So we hope that we find you all well and that you will be looking forward to seeing how to make this box. Okay, so let's get started. I've brought on some of the basic things that we're going to be looking at and how to make them, because what we've actually made is a box that would have four sides like this, with a cutout here where you would have your acetate so you can see what's inside the box. So here's your flap, which would attach to the next one round, and also we'll have a square piece on the bottom that goes in, sort of flaps into the inside of the box so that there's no seams visible on the outside. We've also got a matting layer so that when you cut your box, you can cut yourself a mat for it without there being any problems, and it will fit perfectly, giving you that perfect border all the way around. I also included a piece that could be used for the acetate if you chose to cut that by the computer, by your scan and cut. However, excuse me, I did it just using my cutter because I just thought it was simpler than trying to get acetate on and off my mat, but I'll include that in the file if you wish to do that for yourselves. Just as this is a box with a hole, if you will, so you can see inside, you could also make it as a solid box by omitting that step where we punch that sort of middle part out. If you wish to do that using the file that I've downloaded, you can simply download it, put yourself a shape on like so, and then weld the two together, and that will get rid of the hole, so you'd have that option. I will be including the file up on my blog, so if you do want to download the file, you'll find it at Beverly 10's blogspot, and you'll find lots of other SVG files and FCM files that I've put on there for your use. And I do upload them in both formats, so the FCM and the SVGs, so that people who have other cutting machines that can load SVG files can also use the files that I create. So let's get started. Now this looks quite big, and that's because the Rolodex memory box thing that I bought from Tonic Studios to make the rotating memory thing was actually quite large. So all I did to determine the actual size of my box was measured sort of in 3D, if you will, the height, the width and the length of the rotating memoir, so that I know that it would fit inside. Now when I created the box base, which I'll show you as we go along, I made it so that it fits in when you're gluing it together, so that the tabs kind of glue on the back side of this, and then you glue these tabs around, and it makes that all the seams are actually then inside rather than on the outside. But then what I did do, so that it raised your product up a little bit so that you could see it better in the window, because this is obviously about 1.5 inches depth from there to there, so the bottom part of it wasn't showing up very well. So I made like a false bottom as well, so that you could slot it in from the top so that it was sitting a little bit higher in the box. So I'll show you how I made the file for that too. So the first thing I did was measured it out, and I measured across, and if I just zoom in, I can't just remember what the measurement was now because it's that long since I did it, it's roughly, I think it was about 6.5 no, it was, looks like it was, hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe. Let's just count it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's 7 inches plus the flap. And if we just check that on the side, 7.5 with the flap. So that's about right. And it's 11 inches tall. So obviously you'd have to cut 4 of those, which is what I did. And I used A4 paper to save wastage because it does fit on an A4 sheet. So how I made a start was I first of all brought on a rectangle shape or a square. It doesn't really matter because I can unlock the aspect ratio. And I started off by making it 11 inches high and 7 inches wide. And say OK. Oops, we've still got the maintain aspect ratio. Sorry. Take that off, make sure that's unticked, and then click 11. And that will give you the right sort of size for the starting point for our box. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we want to make ourselves a cutout towards the top. Now, all I did to do this was select an oval shape. So I came into the basic shapes, found the oval, brought it on, and we'll just shut that down. And then we can resize it. We just need to squash it down a little bit, like so. And if we line it up now roughly, I can see what it's looking like on our original box. And then I can give you the dimensions. I didn't write any notes because I did envisage actually doing this much sooner than I have. And obviously, for obvious reasons, I am a little bit behind schedule with things. So let's just move this blue one out of the way and then I can see a little bit better. So if I just shrink that down, I'm not going to go for exact. So it looks like I've done it 4 by 2. So I'm going to make it 4 and 2 exactly. So 4 in width, 2 in height, and we'll call that good. Okay. So I'm going to need 2 of those. So I'm going to select it and make a duplicate. Now I've got Command and Duplicate as a key sort of shortcut that I made. Now, it's entirely your choice whether you make one for it on your computer or yours. If it's a PC, you may already have that option. On the Mac, it didn't have a shortcut for that duplicate, so I made my own. But you could also just right-click and do duplicate, or alternatively, you can go up to the layer and duplicate. They all produce the same outcome. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to go to my layers and I'm going to snap to grid, and I want to just line. What that does is, if you watch when I move it along now, it'll move it along by 1 inch so that it's dead on one of those. And I'm going to move this up, so, or rather down, so that that's also on there. And I'm going to make sure that these are lined up at the same point. Then I'm going to select both, and I'm going to just alter that now to 1/2 inch increments, and I'm going to scoot it up so it's a little bit nearer the top, like so. Now at the minute they're not level, and that's not an issue, but what I'm going to do next is select both, layer and group them, and then I need to select both of those, so the 2 ovals which are now grouped and the rectangle, and we're going to line them up by going into the edit menu, and we're going to line them up centre, because we're already at the right sort of height that I want them at, and that's here where we've got, so we'll have just enough room, about a 1/2 inch tab when we put it in place. If I just bring this on so that we can glue the top part of the box as well. So once you've done that, all you need to do then is select them again, because I've just unselected them, and we're going to press on edit and subtract, and that's effectively now punched that shape out. So as you can see, we're well on the way to making this shape. And if we just put some colour in, it makes it a little bit easier for you to see on the screen. So that's where we are. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make my matting layer, if you will, because we want the matting layer, if we look at it, without the flap. And if you forget to do the matting layer now, it's not as easy to do later, as I found out, but I did it the hard way, so let's do it the easy way for you. So we're going to go on edit, and we're going to click on so that we've got it selected, and we're going to be wanting to be on the edit menu, and we need this bottom option, which is create an offset line, and we want it to be inwards, so we're going to select inwards, and we don't want it quite so big, we want it smaller than that. I'm going to try 0.08 and see what I think of that one, and I think that that makes a nice matting layer. And if we give that some colour, just bear with, just give it some colour just so you can see on the screen what we've achieved. And there we have our matting layer that will fit nicely on our box, leaving a lovely crisp border all the way around. So now I'm going to leave that in. I need to centre it up. I should have just left it without, in fact I'll just go back and it'll put it straight back where it needs to be, like so. So now what we need to do is punch out our, sorry, I've done that a little step too early. I needed to do the punch out first. Ignore that. So what I'm going to do now is bring on a rectangle that's a rounded one. So just from the basic shapes, bring on a rounded rectangle. And I'm going to bring on this one and shut that down. And I'm just going to position it so that I didn't really do this to a specific size or what have you. I just did it so that it looked good to me, so that it was roughly the same here and here. I'm going to have to just take off the snap to grid at the minute because it's still wanting to snap it to the 1/2 inch and I can't position it to get it to where I am. I wanted it so that it was roughly the same sort of distance from here to here was the same as here to here and here to here. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, once I've got it, I'm happy with where it is in this distance and this distance, I'm going to then go on the edit menu and I'm going to line it up in the middle. So now we've got that shape lined up in the middle. Now obviously I can't do it middle and centre because it'd scoot this too far up, so I've just done this other part by eye, and to me that looks okay. So what I'm going to do now is select both of those and I'm going to subtract, and that's effectively punch that out. It's at this stage now where we need to make our offset, so we'll create it again exactly the same way. It should stay on because we've just done it. Inward 0.08, say OK, and there that's given us the perfect matting layer. So if I just give that some colour now so you can see what we've achieved. Just help if you select it, Beverly. And that's where we are now. So now we've got our perfect matting layer. Okay, for some reason it's not punched that out, or it's not showing it as punched out, but it clearly is. So I'm just going to select it and make sure that it has disappeared by punching it out again. And there we have it. So now we've got perfect matting layer for our panel. So now we're going to work on putting our flap, if you will, onto the edge of the box. So we need, first of all, a flap that's going to be, I'm just going to put that snap to grid back on. So snap to grid is in the 4th icon down, snap to grid, and we're just going to line this up to one of the bottom here, and we can see from here to here it's going to be, let me just have a quick look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5 from there to there. So I'm going to bring on a rectangle and I'm going to make it edit, and we're going to size it to 0.5 inches wide by, did I say 7 or 8? I can't remember now. I think it must have been 8 because that don't look long enough. Try 8. Or was it 7.5? I seem to remember there was a half involved, so it must have been 8.5. Does help if you've got a jotter at the side of you when you're doing this. So basically I'm making a rectangle that is the same length of this, if you will, but also about 1/2 inch wide. And I'm going to take a duplicate of that and I'm going to shrink it down to 0.5 by 0.5. And that's going to be our tab for up here, like so. So all we need to do now is add on you could do this by just trimming it off when you cut your box out, but I would prefer if I had, I'm actually going to take another copy of these for later and you'll see why in a minute. So I'm just going to duplicate those and move them off to the side. So we're working on the flaps now. So just let me get some room. Let's get some of this out of the way and you can see what we're doing. So now I've got my flaps in position. So I'm going to double click to expose the Nords and I'm just going to bring it in. So all I've done is, I'll show you on this one, click on the Nord and just bring it across, and because we're on snap to grid, it will automatically do that for you. Okay, so that's that one done. This one, we now just need to change the snap to grid to 0.25. That way then, when we double click and we drag that one in, it will just do it to that, if you will, and that will give us a nice sort of notch there. So the next thing I'm going to do is select all of those shapes and I'm going to weld. Just draw an imaginary box around them and we're going to weld. Now, if it's not just quite doing it, what you need to do is go back onto the layers, take off the snap to grid, click on the first one, just move it across by one with your arrow keys and then try welding again, because it just means they're not quite overlapped. So when you do that now, we should be able to now weld them as we can. You can see that's where we're up to with that. Now I'm going to put the snap to grid back on and I'm going to move this across. I'm still on 25.25, so there we go. Just put it back onto 0.5 and then we're there. So there we've got our line for there. You can do it that way. Alternatively, another way of doing it is if you draw your path tool and hold your shift key down, drag it down, and you can drag it, double click to anchor it. It will select and make it a perforation. So you can either do it with this one or this one. This is possibly the easiest. So once you've selected it, before you click on your space, you need to hold your shift key down and drag it down. And because you've got it on that snap to grid, it will keep the line straight for you. So there we have. Now we can delete that and that. And then we're going to select everything. So both score lines and the main part. And we're going to edit and we're going to, layer and group them. So that's how I made that part there. Okay, so then obviously you would cut 4 of those. And when I find the correct one now, and 4 of your layers. And that would give you the sides for your box. So I'm just going to delete these. Oops. Oh, I don't want to. Sorry. I'm going to just delete those out of the way so we can see what we're doing. So you'd cut 4 of those and 4 of those in your pattern paper should you wish to decorate it. Now what I did do is saved all of these cut out pieces here that we're cutting out from the box and also from the paper, and I used those to make the nice tags that were dangling off the things, as you can see in the picture, which I've included at the start of the video. So don't throw these away because they're an excellent shape. They're the perfect shape for the tags and it's a good way, a versatile way of using them. So next we're going to work on the actual base of the box. So we know that the box was, what did we say, 7? I'm feeling it's 7. Yep, so we're going to make it 7. So I'm just going to move that off to the side and I'm going to bring on a shape, this time a square. And this time we want to maintain the aspect ratio and we're going to make it 7 by 5, 7.5 by 7.5 inches, like so. Now that is the size of the box base exactly. So this one will also be down a little bit. So what we can do is bring that back up to 7.00 7.50, sorry, exactly, rather than that. And that will make sure that that is exactly 7.5. So that will fit exactly. Now, so we've got no flaps. Now, if we're going to allow a 1/2 inch tab like we have on the base, we actually need our box to be bigger than 7.5. So what I'm going to do is just take a duplicate for now, and I can get on it. Keep selecting the Nords, I'm selecting it twice for some reason. There we go. Take a duplicate, and I'm going to add an inch to both of the dimensions. So make it 8.5 by 8.5. So now that one is exactly 1 inch bigger than the other. So I'm going to centre one in the middle like so. Okay, so that's where we are. Now I'm going to send that layer to the back so that this layer is on top, and we're going to select both, and we've hopefully still got on the snap to grid at 0.5, so we're going to move those hopefully so that we've got them nicely snapped to a grid so we can see what we're doing. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we want that to be our score here, so that these will make sort of like how you would make a box lid if you cut it out. So we're going to change that line to a scoring line, like so. So now all we need to do is make our chamfered seam, if you will, here. So we need to have like a cut, a little wedge cut into it, for want of a better expression. So we're now going to make our chamfered corners. So we're going to go on snap to grid and 0.25, and we're going to come in with our path tool, and we're going to come down here and across, up, and double click to anchor like so. Then I'm going to take a duplicate of that and just move it to the side for now. Whoops, didn't mean to move that. So I'll just move that up and out of the way. So next we're going to select our big shape and our small triangle, and we're going to edit and subtract. So now that's made that little chamfer shape, and now we're going to flip that one on its side, and we're going to zoom in so we can see what we're doing, or you can see what we're doing a bit easier than we are doing at the minute. So we're going to move this across to here, and when it gets into that position we're going to select the triangle and the big shape. Just need to duplicate. I'm going to send this one to the back because at the minute it's on top again now. So we're going to click off and click and arrange, send to back. And we're going to take a duplicate, we're going to flip it, and we're going to send it down to the bottom. So we're just going down slowly. Could have done it quickly by moving it across, really, I suppose. We'll just carry on like we are. We're nearly there now. So down to the bottom, and then scoot it across so that it lines up in the right position. Then take another duplicate, flip, we'll send it across to the other side. See if I can get hold of it. It's just difficult to get hold of because it's so small. I can just zoom in, I might be able to do it a bit easier. There we go. So it needs to be over here, but we need it the other orientation, and move it into position like so. So now we've got that one and that one. So we're going to select each of the triangles by holding the shift key down and the main square at the back, and then we're going to subtract. So now that's punched out those notches. Has it done that one? Did I miss that one? Let's just check. Centre back, and I think it has done it, but I'm not sure why. Edit, undo. And subtract, and there we have it now. So now we've got it all notched out, so that will then just make into like as though you would make in a box lid. We just need to extend the score line across here. We can do that if you want. You can just do it by using your undo that because I've not double clicked. So again, you can do the path tool, double click to anchor, scoring line, or you could do these manually using your scoring boards or your score tools, whichever. I'm just waiting for it to get out of the way, and we'll select that one. And again, we go from here across to here, double click to anchor, make it a scoring line, dotted line, and finally, last one, and a scoring line. So that would be the box base. Okay, so now I'm just going to select everything, and we're going to group. So that's the box base. Okay, now what we've got is the box that fits exactly, and we want to fit it slightly inside. So all I did was, whilst it was selected and maintain the aspect ratio, was just to take it down just not so much, very small amount. So I went to 4/8, I think it was, and that just allowed it to fit in snugly and fit the box perfectly. Okay, so what I did is, when I made the box itself, I made two of those, one that I used to make the box and one to make the false bottom by slotting it in. And I made the false bottom, I cut my false bottom out of mirror card so that it reflected back up onto the object inside the box. So that one kind of was your outside, where these fold up and in and attach to the bottom edge of each side of your box. And then another one that made into like the lid of a box that we slot in from the top of the 3D shape, so that it made a platform in the bottom, so that it lifted the object up by 1/2 inch, which then meant that it was more visible from the windows that we put in using the acetate. Okay, so that's how to make the box. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please remember to like, share and subscribe. Remember, I'll include the file over on my blog, which is Beverly 10 Blogspot, and it's dead easy to find. If you just go on to any search and type in Beverly 10 Blogspot, and it's BEVERLEIGH, Beverly, and it will take you to my blog where you'll be able to download the file for free. Okay, so that's it. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Obviously, you can resize this now by selecting everything, grouping and resizing. Or if you've got a different size that you wanted to make, all you would do is adjust the size of your dimensions of your height and your width before you actually started making the box, if you were making it for a particular item. Okay, so I shall see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.